Should start with Auntie.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Minnesota Historical Society and to the fifth event in the Artist in the Gallery series. To start us off, I would like to say that my colleagues and I at MNHS acknowledge that Minnesota is Dakota and Ojibwe homeland. Dakota creation stories are centered in Minnesota, and this regional territory is also an important place in traditional Ojibwe history, as well as those of other tribal nations. Today, Minnesota is both an ancestral and contemporary home to many Native people, including 11 Dakota and Ojibwe tribal nations. The idea of home and homelands plays a central role in our recently developed exhibit, Our Home Native Minnesota. I'd like to welcome you to the fifth in a series of the Artists in the Gallery programs. This program will be archived and available as a recording on Facebook and YouTube. The Artists in the Gallery series highlights many of artists featured in Our Home Native Minnesota exhibit. Support for this program is provided by the Rosemary and David Good Family Foundation. We invite you to fill out a short survey following today's program and let us know what you think. Hello. So Anin, Rita Walzak aren't Indigenous Gawabaganakug in Dunjaba. Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Walzak Arndt, and I am of Polish descent and a citizen of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. My role at MNHS is a collections outreach specialist in the Native American Initiatives Department. I've had the pleasure of working with many Native artists over the years and I'm thrilled to be part of today's Artist in the Gallery series with my Nijikwe, Jennie. Jennie, introduce yourself.
Bonjour, Megizianaqued, Ashimenogijakukwe Indigenacas, Gakabikan and Dunjaba, Gashko Manasin and Dundame. Miigwech for hosting me today. I look forward to sharing my story with you all. So I was invited on this talk to discuss different collections visits and dressmaking and how my artistry has developed over my experience with the collections.
Thank you, Jennie. We will have a question and answer portion towards the end of the program. Please feel free to leave your questions in the comments. We have staff moderating that space and we'll share later. So Jennie, hi. How old were you when you started creating and who or what were your influences then?
Okay. Growing up, I was always in close proximity to traditional arts. As a little kid, my grandparents were creating various styles of art. One of my grandmas from Panema was a birch bark basket maker. Another grandma from Cass Lake was a beadwork artist, and another grandma was one of the most fastest regalia making artists I've ever seen. And so, as a little kid, I always saw them practicing their art from as early as I can remember, 3 or 4 years old. But I didn't have the opportunity to really start or develop a skill until I was probably 9 was when the first time that I ever threaded a needle and secured a knot. And little did I know at the time, like how important that foundation skill was and where it would lead me in my career as an artist today. And I really think it's really important to take in and appreciate those moments and acknowledge them. Not only was I able to observe as a kid the attention to detail and time it takes to create something, to the time you put in to establish those skills. It's really important. My mom, she was a seamstress and beadwork artist. She was one of the people that helped provide regalia for me as a kid so that I could participate in, powwow dancing as a kid. And that's a really important piece of my identity as an adult, the visibility that it gives me and the power that it provides to my spirit. And this is a picture of myself and my nephew. I created this dance shirt to complement his beadwork. And when I'm creating garments for people, I'm thinking, as an auntie on the sidelines watching my nephew dance, how can I see and look up and see him dancing? And that's why I focus on really bold, bright imagery. And not only is, the hours and skill it takes to create these garments, it's the fulfillment of providing that life to them too. He felt really amazing and he was really bashful when he received that shirt. It's just you're a good nephew. You're good in sports. You're good in school. You deserve these really nice things, and it's really cool to be able to provide them for my little relatives.
Could you explain to people who don't understand about the many different parts of regalia, of dance regalia, and how like not a little complicated it can be for all the pieces and why they're so special?
Yeah, there is several layers to creating regalia, and there's oftentimes so many different members of a family or friends, extended family, that get involved in that process because not everybody maybe has the skills to create the entire set, and it can oftentimes take years and different levels of achievement to receive certain things. So, like for him, I provided the dance shirt for him, but his mom and his sister helped create the beadwork. For little boy's traditional, he has a full set of beadwork, which requires like up to 10 different items: headband, those medallions that go on the headband, the cuffs, side drops, belt, moccasins. Moccasins are probably one of my favorite important pieces of not only regalia, but just a item that we have for our identity as Ojibwe people or Dakota people. Any tribe, honestly, they have their own styles of moccasins, and it's really cool to compare the patterns and the materials used in that process. Um, yeah, I think like for my regalia that I had, my mom's helped me create different beaded pieces. She provided, help putting my dresses together, stringing my jingles. It's a big process.
Yes, thank you. And do you want to talk more about where you learned your beadwork from and the designs?
Oh yeah. So a big part of my design process has been influenced by my sister Liz. She's a really incredible artist, and she can freehand draw flowers really beautifully. So when I first started beading, she was one of my first mentors, and she taught me how to, alongside my went as wife, Patty Sam, they were the ones that helped teach me how to do flat two needle stitching beadwork, and the focus and handling of those materials are really meticulous because if you aren't engaging enough tension on one thread, then the tension you're applying to another thread or can get compromised and affect the whole image and the structure of the piece. But me and my sister, we were able to go to a couple different collections and get inspired by the different old school florals. That was our main focus, is Ojibwe florals, and we got to view a lot of like early 1900s, mid 1900s beadwork that was created, and admire the different floral techniques and development from different communities: Mille Lacs, White Earth, Leech Lake. And it's just really amazing to see the different color palettes that they go with and the different garments that they applied their beadwork applications to. And so that's what's really inspired me and really propelled the direction I go in with my artistic practice today. Every time I bloom a flower, I call it blooming a flower. um,
I love that. So trademark, trademark.
yeah. um it's a practice of patience, because different flowers have a different count of beads, and depending on your attention to detail and your style preference, you can either make each petal like as close to the same size as each of its partners, or some artists will like make their kind of staple is like kind of like the more organic, um I don't know, not necessarily perfect, nothing's really perfect, which I think is just as beautiful. So just finding a balance in like what I think is super flat, perfectly shaped um, flowers versus, getting past that self doubt of beating a flower that maybe I hadn't ever done before. It has a more complex petal shape or a petal floral count. Some floral flowers, like a sunflower, has like a million petals, and how do you achieve that whole flower? without feeling overwhelmed, so just giving yourself time, practice, attention to detail, bead selection, all of that really matters. But just being patient, taking your time, developing your floral patterns. I've got like a book of all the different flowers that me and my sister have drawn over the years and kept permanent templates. I think that's really important practice as an artist is keeping track of the work that you've done and how you've evolved over time.
Thank you for telling us how you got to where you are. And can you talk about what hold on. I was like, I had a thing. What were some of the challenges? Like, so you're young, as you're growing up, you're doing beadwork, you're learning textile arts and all of that. But at what point were you like, I think I want to do this as a profession? Like, I think this is what I want to do. Like, so can you talk about some of the challenges and like what led you to start being like, you know what, I can do this as a profession, and then this is great stuff, and this is what I want to do.
I think that desire has stemmed through my childhood, like even before I could make anything. Like going to powwows, seeing and admiring other people's sets of regalia and just being like, wow, oh my God, look at all the love that they're shrouded in. And as a kid growing up in Minneapolis, I had access to like evening programs provided through, I think at the time it was called Healthy Nations, out of the Indian Center, and I think even at the church. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting its name. But there were regalia making classes, and so that was like the first introductory time and space that was given to me as a youth, 9, 10 years old, of being like, here you have the materials you need. What are you going to do with them? What direction do you want to go? And so that, like, though that beginning process was just like mind blowing to me as a kid. And, from there, that was just sewing. That wasn't even, what I originally led off in my artist career was beadwork. That was the first thing I was ever commissioned to do as, I think I was 15 years old. One of my friends out in Utah, she commissioned me to add custom hair ties to her regalia. And I was just like, you want to hire me? I've only beaded a couple of things, so I was like super humbling and like it made me really nervous. I was just like, okay, so now I'm supposed to be complimenting another person's beadwork. Somebody's like, it's not even an Ojibwe style of beadwork. Their floral schemes are so different compared to ours. Their shapes, their colors, everything. Even the style, the technique that they use is really different. So I did my best, and that was my first commission. And it's nice to get paid for something you really enjoyed doing. And like I always had in my mind, it's like, how can I do this and like live off of it, like is that really something that's possible? And this was like before, I think at the time it was like High Five and MySpace, so there wasn't like a big internet internet presence, and so what images I would share, I got really good feedback. And I got hired to make like different medallions, usually for like sports teams. But that was like a really nice easy way to practice technique by creating like really flat images and staying true to what that image is. And like I always had in the back of my mind, like it would be, even if it wasn't like a full-time, it'd be nice to supplement my income with part-time work. And so it was always something I worked towards. But just because at the time, like I didn't really understand how to price my work, how to incorporate like the cost of materials, and actually keeping track of the time put into design, material acquiring, and then the whole entire execution from start to finish, plus delivery of those pieces. So even now in my practice, it's intentional efforts of like monitoring those things so that I'm not losing out on my time in the long run. But I went to culinary arts school. Like I was always drawn to arts, and that was something that really gave myself a lot of like interest. And I was in that culinary field for like 10 years. And I ended up working with Deani Whitehawk. She hired me to help her do beadwork on one of her paintings. And, she had reached out to me, and I was just like blown away because like, hold on, you want me to do beadwork on your paintings? Are you serious? Oh man. But the amazing thing with working with her was she really pushed me to develop my technical skills. And, you know, we're working with these size 5 or 8, and that's like pretty big compared to, yeah, compared to a size 11 or 13. And my sister, she's amazing. Okay. Like her beadwork is so beautiful. Like every bead was born to be on that flower if she decided, right? And I didn't understand because like I couldn't see what my sister meant when it came to the importance of bead selection, placement of like your when you're putting your needle down into the material, like you can't just put it anywhere. Even a millimeter off, a millimeter too high, too deep gives your bead too much room to sit or whatever. So it's like I never understood what she meant until I started working with Diani, and like working with Diani in this context of these much larger beads, I was able to understand like there is a variation in beads. Even it's like a slightly oblong, shorter, fatter, you know, I never noticed those fine details. And so like working with Diani helped me level up in that execution and do like more business development. Yeah, so this piece here, especially this piece, represents my clan, Ogoshka Manisi, Kingfisher from Panema off of the Red Lake Reservation. So this is a blending of the Ojibwe floral work and Dakota floral work. And when you're working on this painted canvas, every single needle placement you do has to be where it's going, because once you puncture that acrylic on the canvas, like it's there and there's no going back. So when we got to this point of our Native Arts Mentor Fellowship through the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation, I really felt like the time that Diani and I shared really was detrimental to being able to execute such a piece with the quality of work. And so I don't know, it took, you know, for sure 5 or 6 specific years of like working on my art part-time, because I was, you know, full-time chef at the time, that, you know, if I really want to be able to live off of my artistic skill, that I'm going to have to be able to execute quality work that can supplement my, you know, living costs. So that's a really important thing to consider if you're an artist, you know, like the quality of your work, the attention to detail that you give your materials, the time, all of it. Yeah, this quill box took over 70 hours to complete within 4 or 5 days.
And Jenny, you learned this while working with Diani, correct?
Yep. So we were
And
in that.
can you tell us who you worked with and how that went?
Yep. So, kind of backtracking a little bit, you know, Diani had originally invited me to work on that painting with her, and that was a really successful partnership. And it kind of was like a big circle of a conversation, because like months before that I had reached out to her asking if she ever had the time to instruct me and my sister how to learn how to do quill work, because like earlier I think one of the first fellowships was quill work for the artist in residency, I think, or you guys were advertising something, and I was like, oh, I've never seen quill work, that's so beautiful, I want to do it, you know.
Or we had Dallas Goldtooth cuff on our first rack cards.
Yeah,
So because they're bright colors, so it's very
so
eye-catching.
yeah, and yeah, every quill is really important. And so we had this opportunity to apply for the Native Arts and Cultures Mentor Artist Fellowship, I believe it's called. And she was like, do you want, like, we could totally do this for quill work. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. Sign me up. So we applied for it, and thankfully we were awarded that grant. And Diani was able to teach me the quill techniques that she knew, and that also provided the opportunity for us to work with 2 other quill artists. And this box was taught to me by Mel Losh. up in Leech Lake. And he's been practicing quill work for over 50 years. And he's self-taught. So yeah, sitting alongside him and like trying to absorb all of his small little like techniques and like trying to understand like the different thicknesses and complexities of just the birch bark alone. Okay, so this is like before the quill work. So respecting the materials that you're working with when it comes from harvest. We went out to harvest birch bark while we were up there, and then some of the colors that are seen in that piece actually were provided by him. He had already had colors dyed. And you know what's so amazing about Mel? He's colorblind. It's like, what? Don't let
Oh,
anything
man.
back.
I need to write that on.
I mean,
Jennie,
I'm
what's
sorry
the
to tell you,
secret?
want anybody to know, but you know, like that hurdle in his life hasn't held him back from creating anything. You know, like it's amazing the way he can pair his colors together. And like when I see quill work, I'm like, that's Mel's. I know it's Mel's. You know, like it's interesting the color combinations. He always emphasizes light with dark. I always pair light with dark. And so the really wonderful thing about working with him is we had access to all of his knowledge. You know, he was so, oh gosh, you know, I hope to go see him soon. You know, he's got such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this practice of the quill boxes. But yeah, so he walked us through every single day that we've got to work with him. Like, you know, I swear every day we would work on a different part. I think the top was the floral part, was the first part, and then I think there's like 11 or 12 different layers happening in this box of like the different pieces of birch bark that are being put together, and then the quills are covering those seams, and just like the ribboning, I call it ribboning. It's like kind of like how the bottom edge are creating those diamonds. Oh man, it's so beautiful. But yeah, somehow he pushed us to complete this whole box really fast. But we had to sort. It's really the intense thing about like quill work compared to beadwork is the amount of work that goes into starting quill work. Like you gotta, you know, the cool thing with Diani and I's fellowship is we had the opportunity to learn how to harvest quills from a hide, sorting and cleaning and dyeing in that same process, and then working with Mel and sorting. I think he teased us when we were sorting like our fill, like I've got this box here with me, but like all of these quills, you know, like we had to sort and size that. Oh, here, sort and size them all, and it's just so much work. And he was teasing us like, "Are you guys still sorting?" And he's like, "I'm." However old he is, and he was like, I've already threw it all. I'm like, oh my god, Mel, my eyes don't work like that. I'm used to being able to pull beads off of a string, you know. It's really humbling to know that like he spent most of his life like meticulously sorting and just being like super fast and efficient because he spent that amount of time. And yeah, I love having the knowledge of quill work, and I hope to be able to give it more time the same way that he has too. So I forgot what the original question was. I feel like I'm going.
Well, I was just asking about your apprenticeship with Diani for the
Oh,
Native Agriculture Foundation.
so continuing that, you know, working with her, and I was still in the culinary field at the time, and I was not happy. And you know, my joy was the time that her and I got to work. You know, we had an allotted amount of time that we could spend together working on our grant, and so we pretty much like planned like how do we get you out of the culinary field and practicing art all the time, you know. So just continuing the fine tuning of actual skills. You know, I had like my base knowledge that I came in with, fine tuning those skills, developing an artist CV so that when I'm applying for grants, when I'm applying for fellowships or, you know, future jobs, that I have all this important years worth of work documented, and I don't have to scramble for that in the application process. And then just going through the process of applying for grants, and not everybody that applies for a grant gets awarded a grant. So just being able to acknowledge that and just not let that discourage you from reapplying for the next grant or the next cycle that same grant is going for, but taking from those instances of like, how do I improve that process? Deani's really been a huge influence in that, and her encouragement as not only a mentor but a friend has really helped me step into, you know what, I'm going to leave my corporate job and I'm going to work for myself. And thankfully so far it's been very successful. And I think a big part of that is just giving yourself the time to develop your own style, and that's something that I've been working on ever since I started sewing and beading, with the help of family, because I haven't been able to come up with, I can't take full account for my designs because my sister, my mom, everybody's influenced it and given me feedback. And so, working with Deani and that fellowship, those moments are priceless, and, I hold them pretty near and dear to my heart. And, I wish I could see her because of COVID. I miss you, Deani, if you're watching.
Well, speaking of grants, you did apply for the Native American Artist in Residence grant. And while you were not awarded the main grant, you were awarded what we call the encouragement grant, which is a smaller grant with a stipend and with a visit to collections at the Historical Society, which was really fun because me and you got to pal around in collections. So can you talk about what that meant to receive that award?
It was very encouraging. I love that because it really was. Like, I know it sounds cheesy, but it was super encouraging because I think that was the first grant I had applied for after me and Deani's mentorship. And so, I mean, just the process of like having the letter of recommendation, like, I feel so bad. I've done this to her a couple of times. So I'm like, the day before it's due, I'm like, Deani, can you write me a letter? She's like, Jennie Marie. But so the encouragement grant was really like a positive affirmation, because it's like, you had a good idea of like the direction you wanted to go to. And like, even though I wasn't like 100% refined in like the direction I for sure wanted, like when I applied, it gives me like the opportunity to be like, okay, Jennie, like, how do we maybe tweak the community aspect, and like, how would you actually approach that with the funding that you'd have? And I have that same template to go off of in the future. But when I received the actual award, I was able to put that funding into acquiring different um, things for my studio. So I was able to like invest in like more bulk items that would usually cost me a higher premium over the year in like smaller increments. And so being able to use that funding through that grant was really a big relief, because, I was able to take on more projects without the hesitation of, man, I need like 4 yards of $30 velvet, and that's a big cost when it comes to um, some commissions. So, I'm really thankful for the Minnesota History Center for having that available to us. I really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you guys. Really appreciate all the funders too. But I look forward to reapplying for that fellowship, and really, I see it as like, that's fulfillment for the community that provides knowledge and resources for our people. I think that's a beautiful part of it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Jennie, and you're welcome. What advice would you give to other artists who are just starting to navigate the scene?
I would say for sure humility, practice humility. Creating art is a big process. And, when people have their specific style and it's acknowledged, within the community or outside of the community. You know, it really is hurtful to see people pretty much copying and pasting the same thing without maybe having a conversation about it. Like, I really like, you know, this thing that you do, that you specifically do, that I'm just gonna do, you know. So I think that it's really important to stay authentic. Another thing is, don't be discouraged by not receiving a grant or award. You know, there's a lot of incredible artists that are, you know, pursuing the same thing, and just because you weren't awarded it doesn't mean that you won't be awarded it or something like that. So learn from those moments. Another big thing that I have to do, I don't know why it happens, but you have to push past your self doubt. And this usually occurs for me at like the almost finish line, you know, when I'm almost done with a commission. I'm like, that's when like the, oh my God, what if they don't like it? What if it's not what they wanted it to be, but you know, it's what I could create. So I think pushing past that self-doubt and not letting that really like harness your trajectory is really important. Another important thing, focus on the quality of your work, and you know, slowing down and really respecting your materials. I think that's something that I really appreciate Deani and my sister Liz trying to like get in my head. Like, it's okay, slow down. Even if it's something's not working today, you know, show up tomorrow with a clear mind, smudge off. You'll be all right. You'll be fine. Um,
You don't have to continue if you.
I was like,
It'll come to you in like 5 minutes. But
yeah.
now, Jenny, let's talk about visiting museum collections.
Love it.
Um, so you visited museum collections on several occasions. I've had the great opportunity of hanging out in collections with you, which has been a joy, and I miss it. So hopefully we'll be able to do that sooner than later. And so what was your experience like? And Ned, our background person, is going to show some of the images that of things you've seen and really enjoyed, and we can talk about those, like this shirt.
Yes. So, an interesting thing that I think even people maybe experience before they even reach out about seeing collections is like the imposter syndrome. It's like, is that even a place that I will be? You know, is that somewhere I'm supposed to be? Like, is my artistic ability something that grants me that space? You know, so I think it's really important to people to know that these collections are accessible to the community, and it's just a process of reaching out to like Ben Gessner, who's, is he the main person over there for collections visits? Emailing somebody about
Yes, yes, and then also I can help coordinate collections visits. Like more likely after we're all vaccinated from COVID, but we'll see what we can do because of social distancing reasons and collection space.
Yeah. And I think like for my personal experience, a big part of accessing collections has been through social media. Um, because I followed and participated in commentary through your guys' Facebook and Instagram page, and so just by being engaged on that platform that I'm comfortable was what got me in the door of like making a time to come meet with you guys and view the collections. But once I was in there, like that shirt that was just on the screen, that shirt, man, when I saw it, oh, my soul was like, yes. So this garment is what truly inspired me to really focus on how do I, you know, at the time I was mainly practicing beadwork, but how do I create accessible garments to people and that I can produce in a manner that isn't, you know, half a month or a month's long worth of work. And so from there, um, yeah, so this next image is a shirt, a dance shirt that I made. I do believe it's in Michigan with an elder. Um, but this was the first woodland shirt that I'd ever created. And I just wanted it to be fully loaded with florals and have that front and back velvet yoke. And this was like the first, I remember sitting and sewing this shirt, and I was just like, oh my goodness, if I'm serious about this, how on earth am I just gonna keep on sewing flowers for the rest of my life? So like coming to like a complete garment with this one was like so amazing. I was like, wow, I did this, and I got like such incredible feedback from it, and like thankfully somebody acquired it right away. So I felt like, okay, I think, doing this self-employed artist thing is, going to be a feasible venture for me. And so looking at the collections, I got totally inspired by different things that I was creating. And there's a really cool coat with beadwork around the collar. This is a, what did you call this? A
It's
cigar
a smoking jacket,
jacket?
and it's one of my favorites in the collection. And I might be biased because it was made in white earth, and so you know how that goes. And but it's so unique because I love talking about the jingles on this. And
Yeah.
I love talking about it because what people don't understand is that, or don't notice right away, is that the beadwork on the collar is very different from the cuff. And I do believe that the collar beadwork is reused from either a legging or a dance apron and then repurposed for this kind of thing. So when you talk about making things more accessible and making things easier, like this is what I think of it. And like reduce, reuse, recycle, that's what we Ojibwe are really good at.
Yeah.
So, and you can see it. So what else does this jacket make you think of?
Oh my goodness. Like I just look at the pairing of all the leaves put onto the florals and how the vines. I think one thing that really stands out to me and that me and my sister have always adored have been people's vine work styles, and these little moments like that little spiraling vine that has like the two threads coming off of it, and then the point that's coming off of that red bud to the left. Like those moments are just like so pleasing to me. I love them. The colors, you're right. The color combination from the cuff, you can see like the way more vibrant. Like, what is that? Orange, red.
Yeah, and they're different size beads too. That's another
Yeah,
reason why I think they were made at different times. But I still think it's cool that they put this all together.
yeah. No flower left behind. But it's so beautiful because that coat maybe for that relative was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this coat. This isn't something I would wear. And then the auntie, mom, or grandma was like, hold on, let me get my beads, let me bust out some old work. And it's just, it's so amazing to see that, like you said, that could have been a legging, but maybe that person wasn't able to dance anymore. And so they're like, how else are we gonna stunt on them?
I have something to zhuzh it up a bit. It's nice, but
I love the zhuzhing.
let's zhuzh it up. And then I know you were talking about moccasins earlier, and the moccasins at the Historical Society are pretty cool beans. And tell us your feelings about these.
Oh man, they're so gorgeous and clean. I mean, if there was the zooming capability, you would see these like little tiny pleats that are happening. The beadwork that's on the top part of the foot is called a vamp, and the beadwork that's going around the ankle would be the cuff. And this is called a split toe style. And what I love about this pair of moccasins is not only is it like super clean and beautiful, but the materials that they decided to go with, like that silk plum bias, is so gorgeous and delicate. And then not only is there beadwork happening on here, but around the seam of the vamp is embroidery work, and you don't always see that happening in on moccasin styles. And sometimes that'll be like a leather strip, or a bias strip, a different material. So it's really cool to see that this relative used, I think, two or three different colors to like intertwine that pattern around. And I think those moments are just so, they deserve big applause there, because moccasin making is like a different level of muscles. And I was fortunate enough to learn from Greg Biscoconade Johnson from Lac de Flambeau. He's a really amazing artist, and he's always so willing to share his teachings. And so having that time and space with him was really, really amazing. And so learning from him, I was able to like help create moccasins. Me and my mom made each other moccasins when we were learning from him. So that was really cool. Like my mom made me moccasins. And over the years, I was able to pass along those teachings that he shared with me. And it was really cool because Cole Jacobson, he was last year's recipient, him and Sarah Howes. What was like super mind blowing about them is like they're both focusing on moccasin making, but they're both coming up like two different ballparks of approach, right? Like Cole was doing community teaching, and Sarah and her helpers put together a really amazing book that I've used, and I have that here, which is really cool. But I just think moccasins, they're so important. That's how we identify ourselves with the earth sometimes, who we are. All cheesy.
Um, so in just a moment, we're going to get to some of the questions that have been popping up in the comments. And please, if you have some, please share them in the comments and we'll try to get to them as much as we can. But let's look at one bandolier bag. Should we do my favorite one?
Yes.
Let's do my favorite one, Ned. Because then also, it was good. So the Historical Society is home to over 150 bandolier bags, and they're all beautiful. Majority are Ojibwe, but we do have some from Potawatomi, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Dakota. And this one is from the late 19th century, and you can see it on exhibit currently at our home, Native Minnesota, at the Minnesota History Center. But Jennie, tell me what you feel when you see this bag.
Oh, I'm in love. Okay, so like what blows me out of the water just from quick glance is how full and loaded the strap is. Like there is very limited white background space, and every single flower, and even the flowers that are the same style, like you've got those bulbous ones that have like 5 different, if not more, color patterns. And it's like this artist was like so amazing with their color detail and the emphasis of like how the whites pop off the pinks, or even like the pinks roll off of the light blues. Like that that is so gorgeous to me. And what I love about seeing this bag in person is the gorgeousness of the lower bag portion. The like, because what are those? Aren't there like galvanized metal beads on there for the pink?
Yeah, there's pink metal beads, and this I think is the only thing I've seen in our collection that has pink metal beads, because there's gold and silver
Mm-hmm.
on a bunch of things, but
Yeah.
never pink.
And I love that like swirling, um what is that pattern, a border pattern. Like you don't see that specific style very often. If anything, I've only seen it 1 or 2 places. And even this one, how they use like just that aqua blue glass bead with the little tassels on the bottom, and even how they dropped the little edge tassel of the bias. All those moments are so precious. Ah, I love them. I think that's what I started first studying at collections visits, was bandolier bags, because that's what I wanted to try to make. But those things take forever. That's why I started doing applique. That and applique, that's what influenced me.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to some questions. Are you ready, Jennie?
Yes.
Okay. Diane Rose asks, did you use wildflowers as inspiration for your art? And then I like the dragonflies in your face.
Thank you. Yeah. All flowers can be interpreted to be a specific flower depending on the piece. A lot of times, like sometimes like plums can also look like berries. What else? Lady slippers. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, plum trees have really beautiful flowers too, and those can be paired together. What else? One of my favorite vines to create when I'm doing applique is like fiddleheads, how they curl around inside of themselves. Like that's one of my favorite. But they're so tricky because I wanted like keep a really nice edge with my embroidery thread. So it's like, okay, how do I turn, turn, turn? So yeah, I definitely take a lot, all influences from wildflowers, sunflowers. I haven't done too many animals. Like those dragonflies were my first quilled life thingy.
The kingfisher.
Oh yeah, well the kingfish is beaded.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, but still.
But he was my second bird. My first bird was a goldfinch, and that is our language. That little guy represents our language, vitality or whatever. But yeah, everything's influenced from, and it might not be as like direct or obvious, but it's definitely influenced majorly by a lot of leaves. I love maple and oak leaves. Oak leaves are boss level beading because they have all them, depending on the type of oak tree.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Leaf is intricate. So
All
yeah,
right.
I love nature. My own garden. No pollen.
Yeah, no, good garden. Chris Allen writes, are workshops for bead and or quill work available in Minnesota? Do you know? I mean, obviously due to COVID, it might not be, but do you know of places that do workshops, community workshops for either of these?
I've been hired to teach classes, but that clan at the Indian Center, I don't know. They usually host classes on like under normal circumstances, but one of my favorite things that have come out of um, this pandemic has been online resources. So if you follow certain artists on like some of my artist friends on Instagram, they'll host beading circles. I can't say of anything specifically, but that'd be kind of cool thing to gather, maybe to have like as a link on maybe like a follow up for this talk,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
there are really cool beading circles, and there are resources. I think Sarah House, I think she has some YouTube videos. Jamie Okuma, she has beading technique videos on hers, and she's really detailed in how to do the process. So those are two women to YouTube.
Right. Hannah Novio asked and says, you mentioned your background as a chef. Has what you've learned through those experiences helped develop your practice with beadwork?
Yes, working 13 to 14-hour days, totally. That's my main thing. It's like it's easy to work all day and not be on my feet. I guess one of my favorite things that's like tied to the culinary field has been I created this shirt. So I do to like create more accessibility and like visibility for indigenous imagery. I add applique to like men's button ups, women's button ups. I'm working on some women's velvet vests right now. But so for Brian Yazzie, he's a chef that's really pushing indigenizing culinary diets. And I was able to create a garment for him that included the sunflower, the three sisters, but he wanted like specific, I think it was a Navajo black bean, Oneida white corn, and I forget the type of squash. But like being able to create that imagery for him, I was like, oh my goodness. And like being a fellow culinarian, I just felt really humbled by that. It was a really cool experience. If that answers that.
Beans. Yeah, my what I got from there is you like to put beans into your beadwork.
Yes. Bean shaped beads. I'm just kidding.
Beans. All right. Next question from Missy Hermes. What is a dream project you would like to create?
Well, I'm currently in the reapproach of my dream project, which when I first started going to collections, I was studying bandolier bags and beaded vests. And so I was commissioned way too long ago to make my first beaded vest. And the thing with these projects, and I keep emphasizing, is learning and respecting your materials, right? And so, I was commissioned to make this vest, and the design is like full body, full back, right? And I don't know if anybody understands the slipperiness, or
Of
the
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 velvet?
velvet has like a pill, yeah. So like the height of the material. So I started the vest and it didn't go well. And I think it was not good from the get go, like how I set up the materials. Like I wasn't respectful of like the long-term effects of how I did it. So like it's not good. And so now, I've had experience adding my satin applique to the velvet, and really started understanding like how best to secure these layers together when I'm applying my design layer to the velvet, but not only the velvet, securing the velvet to the layers happening below the velvet. It has to be secure and stable so it can last forever is my goal. So hopefully I would like to be done with it before the snow comes.
In one of the historic collections. Oh, sorry, Jenny. I've like interrupted you. So in one of the historic collections, one of our relatives used newspaper as like a stabilizer for their vest. So they're in between the vest and the flannel that they use newspaper as a stabilizer.
Black flannel. Did they use flannel? Oh, okay. So the flannel's like one of the base. Oh, yeah, dude. That's something really cool because, people often use what they had in hand. They didn't always have duck canvas or tight weave cotton. It's like, what do we have? And I actually have a really cool example. So one of my grandmas who I admire, and she's, passed on, we inherited some of her projects that she had, when she was working on before. And so this is a rosette that she's beading on a purse. But the back, what she used as a stabilizer is denim. So I don't know if this was like a pair of jeans that maybe whatever. But it's like, that's hardcore, man. I can't, like, does that hurt to pull through? Because this is like a suede stack, not only a suede, but a suede stacked on denim. So it's like, grandma had some like really, that's a muscle, like that's a core. Don't get her mad. But it's just really cool to see, what people made work. And so like I feel like such a diva being like, I messed up. But it was discouraging, It was discouraging and it was a big waste of material. So now, green light. Let's go.
All right. All right, Megan Evans says, I've seen some amazing baby Yoda, his name is Grogu, and Inauguration Bernie and Beadwork recently. Does popular culture provide inspiration for your work in addition to traditional?
Like when I started doing beadwork, popular culture was what was revenue for me. I'm not going to say anything specific because I might get in trouble. But, that's what people do want, but that's not the direction I want to go in with my work. I think it's amazing and so awesome what people do come up with. Like there's this guy, Herb Feinday, up in Fond du Lac. He's also a applique artist and he does beadwork, but he did a Bernie Sanders ribbon skirt recently. And it looks amazing. Like his little shoe details, his laces. I'm just like, I'm blown away by what people come up with and like how they put those things together. So I personally wouldn't. I mean, maybe for like my nieces or something, like if they wanted it, but I like to kind of stick towards more traditional, contemporary images.
Yeah. So you're not going to make a Wu-Tang medallion anytime soon?
No. Maybe it had florals inside of the like yellow flowers inside of the Wu-Tang. That could happen. And nothing against that either. Popular culture is really important and has put, a lot of our art on the
mainstream.
Whatever. Yeah, mainstream. So yeah.
Next question. Alexandra Buffalo Head. Hello. Are the wildflowers you referenced indigenous to Minnesota or from more of the homelands of the Anishinaabe? So I'm thinking that she is meaning like other Great Lakes region, the East Coast, where our people have traveled from all those years ago.
Yeah. Well, so far my current floral inventory has been local. All local flowers. Yeah. Strawberry blossoms, squash blossoms.
We have strawberries out east, but I don't know.
Blackberries, wild rice, you know, like
Yeah.
even those, they're not necessarily flowers. They're important parts of our culture, you know, like those are things that help sustain our existence in these regions. So yeah, unless like a specific client wants something specific, like I've been hired by other tribe people from tribes.
Other
Other
groups.
have hired me.
Other
But
tribal groups.
yeah, so I will stay true to what they're requesting too. I try to keep a pretty solid idea of what their what their motifs are like, or if they can reference me anything, or if they have a specific image, then I'll switch it up from Anishinaabe. But you know, other people, non-Anishinaabe people, have also hired me for my floral. So like my flowers are intertribal too. You know, you can rock them if you're not Anishinaabe. That's totally cool.
Cool. Thank you for sharing about your flowers. Amy Burnett asks, is there a difference working with cotton velvet and polyester velvet?
Um, I feel like one's slipperier. You know what I'm saying? Like one has a higher pill. Like the pill is the height of the fiber that comes up, and so I like um the shorter pill because like especially with beadwork, you know that the pushback of that fiber can like totally mess up where you want your beads to lay. So I like to try to keep. I think it's the cotton. Now that you mention it, Amy, I'm gonna pay more attention. But I did research that. Like, what's the difference between, you know? But I do believe it's the pill height that matters. And oh man, I think when I first started doing the satin applique, I was using the polyester, and that was hard. That was hard because I didn't, you know, I was unfamiliar with that material, that I didn't realize that that was something to consider when like pressing my design. Because like even with like the thing that's different about my work is there's symmetry in the florals, where like old school stuff there wasn't symmetry. But maybe that's like, huh?
There was symmetry, but it wasn't like
Mirror.
mirrored symmetry like in Dakota floral. Like
Mm-hmm.
it matched. Like there was a flow. Like it complemented each other, even though it wasn't the same.
Like your strap on your favorite bag.
Yeah.
There is symmetry, but yeah, okay. So I don't know if that's like my kingfisher ancestors being like,
Mm-hmm.
slice that in half. You know,
I
so
like it.
yeah. No, for sure. Back to the materials. It's really important to understand and respect your materials because they will. The velvet has been like slipped me off there a little bit. So yeah, it does matter to me. Some people use furniture velvet or upholstery.
Oh, upholstery velvet? That makes sense.
It's like way flatter. It's almost like a.
It's
I don't know.
probably easier to clean too.
Yeah, and like this one guy in Canada, I follow him on Instagram. I think his name is Mitch Case. He's always busting out beadwork, and that's what he beads on. But he like, I think the type of paper he puts on it to trace his pattern, I think it can like dissolve, so he can get that wet. Like, if I got
Wow.
my velvet wet, it would be wrecked. Velvet.
All right, one last question here. Katie Simon asks, this is specifically about that jacket, is like, how is the jacket worn and are they cleaned? So I happen to know, as the jacket was actually gifted to a man in 1920 from the White Earth Reservation. They were essentially inducting him into the band. And there's photos of him wearing it over the time period, but I don't think he wore it that often. It is a velvet jacket. And for cleaning questions, I would refer to my textile conservation, not my text, yeah, my textile conservation team at the Historical Society, who know a lot more about that and probably have cleaned that jacket many a time. But it's really, people would wear it. It's like your Sunday best. You
Yeah.
know, the beadwork and stuff is Sunday best. And for cleaning yeah, I don't know. It depends on the type of metal. It's dry cleaning.
Definitely dry cleaning. Like, and the sun will fade the velvet too. It'll turn like a brown, or it'll like strip,
Yeah.
or something happens. It's really crazy. I've seen that happen, and it's really sad. But
There's one more question. I lied. Okay. So Alexandra really liked Smooshy's appearance. Thanks for liking Smooshy, Alex.
I
Have
just
you
saw
ever
these. I have not.
to make kitty mocks or be a four-legged beat? So my cat needs something, Jenny.
You have 3 cats, don't
I
you?
do have 3,
They'd
yeah.
be jealous if only one got a pair. Are you kidding? But I just saw on Instagram somebody did make pucker toe boots, like so it comes up the paw and like laces around. So yeah, it's totally doable. But my little dog, when we got her some little shoes or like winter soft shoes to wear, she was pissed. She was like, "Take these off me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna lay here." But I haven't. But I literally today saw an Instagram post about it, and I was like, "Oh, that is the most cutest thing ever." There's no beadwork on them, so maybe the next pair will have beadwork. I have not. Love it.
Well, that's what your future will hold. Okay, we'll think about that.
Maybe some applique vests. I can make them like little
cute.
garments. I don't know about the shoes though.
Well, Chimikos Jenny for sharing so much with us today. And thank you all for joining us. We would love to hear from you. If you have a couple minutes, there's a link in the comments for a short survey. A recording of this program will be available shortly on Facebook and YouTube. And please join us next month on February 25th as curator Ben Gessner talks with cultural practitioner and artistic educator in the Anishinaabe tradition, Greg Johnson, who Jenny talked about earlier, about winter activities. So thank you very much and have a good day. And please join us again in February. Bye.